the Great Smoky Mountains, more than 500,000 acres at the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. Renowned for its stunning beauty, biological diversity, and frequent visitors.
We get somewhere close to about 12 million visitors a year.
There is an estimated 60 to 70,000 species in the park.
The ecosystem here is amazing here in the Smokies, from salamanders to elk. Wildflowers, birds, fish, the aquatic life here is just amazing.
Protecting the most visited national park in the country is a job as big as the mountains themselves.
We're really seeing a lot of effects on the environment here. The leave no trace is really gone out the window. A lot more trash in the park, a lot more vandalism in the park, digging up wildflowers or even shooting animals in the park.
And behind the smoky curtain, there is a world few people know exists.
We're spending a lot of effort discovering what's here and learning about their role in the ecosystem.
We want to know what species live here. That's a hard enough question to answer.
With so many miles of forest, the chance to discover a new species may be around every corner. But with the pressure of environmental threats growing, the clock is ticking.
You can't really protect something if you don't know it exists.
Few national parks in the United States have such an immediate calling card as the Great Smoky Mountains. With its unmistakable blue mist, this section of the Appalachian mountain range used to be known by the Cherokee as Chickanohay.
Translated means place of the blue smoke, because that's what they were looking up in the mountains. They could see the smoke in the mountains, and they would call it that.
Discovered by European settlers in the 1700s, the Smoky Mountains have long been cherished for their abundance of natural resources.
Early explorers like William Bartram, John Fraser, some of those early naturalists came through here and exploring the Smokies. There were traders that were hunting wolves and elk. After the American Revolutionary War, we definitely had more land settlement in this area because a lot of land grants were happening. By the time the 1900 rolled around, there were probably close to 6,000 people that lived in what is now Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
With the creation of other national parks out west, such as Yellowstone in 1872 and the Grand Canyon in 1919, the communities surrounding the Smokies began to wonder if the mountains could draw similar crowds.
People from Knoxville and even Asheville were traveling to these national parks. They came back here wondering, why don't we have a park in the eastern part of the United States? And so they came here and they started kind of looking at what they could do in the Smokies.
But the creation of the park was met with resistance, not only from the families who called the park home, but logging companies that profited from the land naturally objected as well.
The logging companies, like Champion Logging Company and Little River Logging Company, they owned, between the two of them, close to 300,000 acres of logging land.
In 1927, Tennessee and North Carolina each contributed $2 million for the creation of the park, but it was still not enough to purchase the land.
The problem was that the logging companies wanted a little bit extra. These logging companies said, but we also want something called a stump price. You look at an acre of land and all you have is stumps. You count those up and you find out how much money that tree would be in logs. And you pay the person for that tree because they say those trees will grow back. And so that was a huge stumbling block with the prices that were going up to buy this land.
The local efforts to create a national park received a boost by one of the world's most successful businessmen.
Only $5 million was raised to buy the land. And the John D. Rockefeller Jr. actually matched that with another $5 million. So $10 million bought 400,000 acres originally for this land. If you look at that in today's dollars, Mr. Rockefeller gave $88 million to buy this land during that time. This is the first national park that was created out of private lands. But after it happened, we had a national park by 1934 when we opened our doors.
In 1940, the 522,419-acre park was officially dedicated by Franklin D. Roosevelt for, quote, the permanent enjoyment of the people. With any conservation effort, there's an inherent catch-22. The park must be made available for recreation in order to raise money to support it, but the maintenance needs to go hand in hand with the visitation, and all of that contributes to the compromised ecosystem.
We love for people to get out and enjoy nature. It's nice to have a lot of visitors, but at the same time, when we get as many as we do, sometimes it's a challenge. It's a constant balancing act to try to keep the resources protected, but at the same time provide for that enjoyment for people.
Every person wants to experience the park in the fullest way possible, or their own way. They want to go out and hike or go and pick that flower or something. And that's okay if, one or a handful of people do it, but if there's 13 million people doing it a year, that has a huge, additive effect. And that is just, can be a really big problem that the park is just having to figure out how to manage.
We have the visitation here. We have the people coming here. They are bringing money. They're bringing money to the communities. They're bringing money into the park. They're donating money to the park, which helps us in the long run. But then if you look at the big picture, the money that's coming back in is what we're basically fixing what is happening when they all come in, whether it's trash pickup or graffiti on a historic building. Our biggest budget in this park is maintenance, to keep this place up for all the visitation that's coming in. That's why we really rely very heavily on volunteers and scientists from all over the world that come here to help us do research.
The Great Smoky Mountains is home to one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on our planet.
As far as parks go, it is one of the most diverse areas in the world, really, just because of how small it is. If you look at comparison to Yellowstone, which is twice the size, our diversity here is huge compared to that. Not just species, but just looking at our geology here. Everything from 800-foot elevation to 6,643 feet. We have 6 different forest types here in the Smokies, which I think there's only 8 or 9 in the world. So it's just a very huge place here of different diversity in a small area.
There are so many species here that park biologists estimate that there are as many as 50,000 unaccounted for.
For a forest to become considered an old-growth forest again, it has to be close to 400 years old. The forest around us right now is 80 years old. So this forest is kind of in elementary school right now. So we're seeing changes every single day. I've seen different researches that we think we have 100,000 different species in this small area. And every year we get something new. It's so amazing. I truly believe as this forest transitions back into an old-growth forest over years, we're going to see more and more things come back that maybe have not been seen in 100 years.
But why is that important? And whose job is it to keep track of all of these plants and animals? Enter Discover Life in America, or DLIA.
Discover Life in America, we're a nonprofit partner of the National Park Service. Our mission is to discover, understand, and conserve biological diversity. We've been doing field research since 2000, and we host scientists from all over the world.
The whole basis of the project is to basically learn a lot more about the park and what lives here, all the species, where they live, how they interact, their ecological role in the park, and that will help us to better manage any threats that this park faces.
The DLIA is tasked with managing the ATBI.
A big part of the All Taxa Biodiversity Inventory, the ATBI, is the educational component. And so we like to talk to people about some of the smaller things that we look at. The diversity that we've found during the ATBI has been mostly amongst the invertebrates.
If you think keeping all of these abbreviations straight is a challenge, try keeping track of the tens of thousands of species crawling, flying, falling, and flowing throughout the park.
There's bears and turkeys and deer all over the place, but there's a lot of other life forms in the park that are just as fascinating and a lot more diverse as well. The diversity of the invertebrates directly impacts the diversity of the vertebrates that we see, and we can't have one without the other. They're all interrelated.
Not only in the ATBI do we want to know what species live here, just like a list of the species that live in the park. That's a hard enough question to answer, but we also need to know more in-depth information like where and when those species live in the park and how they're related to each other. Which kinds are rare, which kinds are endemic, meaning they're only found here. We want to get to know them on a first name basis.
It's important to know what is here, but it's also very important to understand their role in the system. And so, for example, the snail shell provides calcium for the birds that eat them and so on, and process chemicals throughout the environment. And so there's a lot of interrelationships there that we focus on so we can understand it better. If there's a threat that impacts one part of that system, then we can better manage that and just have a better understanding of how the whole ecosystem functions.
The information generated by the ATBI can help answer much bigger questions about the health of not only the park, but the world.
I think a lot of people have probably noticed that as they're driving down the road during the middle of summer, typically you get a lot of insects on your windshield, and that doesn't seem to happen that much anymore. And so just in general, I think people can relate to the fact that insects are declining. And you might initially think, oh, that's a good thing. I don't like insects, I don't like flies, I don't like mosquitoes. But they all play a pretty critical role in the environment. And if they all disappear, or if they decline dramatically, I think we're all gonna feel the consequences of that.
Goes back to that whole idea of the food chain and everything is connected. One of the things we like to remind people is we humans are also connected to all this. We're not separated. What affects wildlife and animals eventually will affect us. So it is always a chain reaction when you're talking about wildlife and when you're talking about food chains. Everything is connected, and if you don't protect all those things, then you're really not protecting any of those things.
Becky Nichols and Will Kuhn are both entomologists trying to connect the dots between all these different insects in the park.
I'm totally into bugs, and a lot of the discoveries that we've made here as far as the ATBI goes are insects and other arthropods, and a lot of the discoveries that we think are left to be made as well.
For my position, I work a lot on aquatic entomology, so I'm looking at aquatic insects in streams, checking on their diversity from year to year as part of a long-term monitoring program to basically determine the health of the streams in the park.
Ultimately, the goal is simple.
Hopefully people will learn to respect wildlife and understand why they need the resources that they do.
Visitation is increasing, So we're really relying very heavily on social media to get the message out of how important it is for preservation and protection of not just the natural, but also the cultural resources here in the Smokies.
So whether you're visiting the Smokies for the breathtaking views, or challenging trails, or maybe just hoping to catch a glimpse of a black bear, keep an open eye for everything around you.
One of our goals or sort of side missions is to get people to stop and see the small things. You know, a lot of people spend time just racing down a trail to the nearest waterfall or to hope they see a turkey or a bear or elk, and they're missing out on all the good stuff, really.
I would like visitors to look at the smaller things and try to appreciate all life forms that we have here in the park. We're spending a lot of effort discovering what's here and learning about their role in the ecosystem as a whole. And we don't always know what that role is, and they could be very important. So take a closer look at that little beetle on the ground or the fly that lands on your arm. Aquatic insects, turn over a rock in the stream. Just appreciate all different life forms that live here.
For thousands of years, the landscape of the Smoky Mountains has been changing, and the goal of these scientists and the Park Service as a whole is to preserve and protect this area for the generations to come.
There's so much diversity that brings really 12 million people a year to come see this. It's just from the natural resources to the cultural resources. The sky's the limit of what you can explore here and to learn.